guys. How is the year going so far for you on
So guys,
fantasy league?
so guys, how is the new year going for you? थोड़ी और जान से बात कर भाई.
So, hello. So, guys, how is the is some seductive? Have you seen that Tumhari Sulu,
That's
whatever
not
it was?
seductive. That is like a phone call that template that you would make kids hear and say, if you hear
Like,
this voice, do not answer your phone.
Kevin, do people has someone said that to you, Kevin?
yeah, I was gonna say, has someone said that to you?
Akash
So after
said it.
listening to you,
Gosh.
But Dream Girl movie इसी के बारे में है, right?
Yeah. Oh no, and even Tumhari Sulu, that Vidya Balan talks like,
Oh yeah, true.
and the guy, he's, I can't remember. Anyway, how is everyone's fantasy league going? Amrit, your team is doing very well, apart from the one factor that happened today. But
I'm just very happy I thrashed you in week 2.
I
That is the
forgot.
only
I keep forgetting I have to update every day. You know that? Honestly,
No, you don't
I
have to. You
No,
can do it for the
अबे-
whole week.
Can you?
पूरे week का.
Yeah.
हाँ.
I didn't
अभी
even
उसने
know that.
setting
Like
change की
Luka
थी.
I have Luka Doncic and he's on my bench. I just realized, and he
No,
got
I'm
like so many points
very.
today and rebounds.
Akash, it won't
He's a
make a
foreign.
difference against me, Akash.
Yeah, Kevin.
He's
You know, I have like
He's
47 games. Poor guy.
I had
47 games.
80 points I lost because he was on my bench
No, Akash
alone
is
from one
unlucky.
person.
I don't think he'll ever lose to my team if like he has 35 games and I have 47 games. Like I think मेरा
My
luck
main
चला
player
है
has
इस
been
game.
injured for past 3 weeks. He's in my
कौन?
first
Cat?
draft.
Carl
Towns.
Anthony Towns ना भाई
Yeah.
मैंने लास्ट ईयर लिया था मैं लास्ट ईयर ही समझ गया था कि वो किसी काम का नहीं है उसको कुछ ना कुछ होता रहता है पूरे साल
So no,
He
I
had a
took him
very
because
sad.
yeah, exactly. I was slightly
Yeah.
emotional उसके लिए.
हाँ भाई आई नो उसका लाइफ का वो खराब था तो आई इवन व्हेन नथिंग बैड वाज हैपनिंग ही यूज्ड टू नेवर बी अवेलेबल
Maybe that's
Okay,
why he
let
will play now. He will try to make a
let me
point.
read out. We have a friend group that started a fantasy league for our audience. Right now, Amrit is top of the table with 1 win, as is
धन्यवाद
Sid, as is Kevin.
Kevin is the biggest surprise in all of this by the way
Me, Vidit,
True.
and Arnav, who's called himself the underdogs, are lost, tied. Recent trade that's going on. Oh no, not even trade. Kevin has dropped Covington for Brooks. Last
अबे
transaction. Why?
किसी को पता भी है
Explain that,
कोई
Kevin.
कोई फैंटेसी बास्केटबॉल खेलता भी है हमारी ऑडियंस में जिनको हम ये सब
Yeah,
फालतू की
You
चीजें
never
बता
know.
रहे हैं
You know, I've strangely been making like in like a lot of moves this week. Like this Sexton guy or some guy man from
Colin
Cleveland.
Sexton
Colin Sexton man.
He's a good
Man,
player.
that guy was
calling
an amazing
Sexton
pick.
Kevin did you just hear what he said calling Sexton
I said Collins.
अबे Colin है बे
Oh, okay.
Oh, Amrit.
Okay, yeah.
Our matchup
Yes.
बहुत ही close है. 850 to 849. I
बहुत
didn't even
close चल रहा
realize.
है यार मेरा कायरी पर्सनल रीजन से चला गया यार ये क्या बकवास होती है इंजरी होती तो मैं तब भी आई डोंट माइंड लूजिंग बिकॉज़ इट्स अ क्लोज इनफ थिंग इज फॉर पर्सनल आई मीन देन समथिंग सैड विल कम आउट देन आई फील मच बैड फॉर सेइंग दिस
I don't think he's playing next game as well.
नहीं पूरे हफ्ते नहीं खेल रहा
But don't worry, your aunt is also not playing mine, you idiot. One
So
person
I
I
was-
thought he would give me consistent numbers.
Right,
Useless.
Akash, when I faced you, I was so happy that even though you had KD, I had Kyrie on the other side. I was so happy. I was very happy with that. That was
Rubbish.
one thing that kept me going.
I lost the
And-
first matchup just because मेरे पास वो Towns नहीं था. It was so close. Otherwise, it
किससे
would
आ
have
रहा
been
था तू पहले में?
Sid.
वो उसकी
He always picks some. पता नहीं उसकी टीम इतनी बाप है हमेशा.
He does research.
No
man, I'm
idea.
Sure Salah said.
yeah, that's the thing. I think that's what most
Anyway.
people are supposed to do.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Vele podcast. I am your host Akash. Alongside, he only knows everything. Amrit George. Say hi, Amrit.
हमने कहा था कि हम इंट्रो नहीं देंगे.
Oh, shut up. And he knows some things. Kevin John.
What's up?
And the sick one of all of us, Arnav Panitkar. Hello, Arnav. How are you feeling?
Hello.
There you
वो
go.
खास रहा है.
Anyway,
वो
let's
सही में
just
खास
get
रहा है.
let's just get straight into it before Arnav has a coughing fit. Our first topic today is on the legal judgments that had an impact on India. This
Akash,
was
why
a
did we
topic.
choose these topics?
We had a very serious meeting on how to improve our podcast, and Amrit came up with this idea. I'm guessing
No,
I
this was
came late to the meeting because we were very serious about it. I came to the meeting.
our Joe Rogan was unavailable, so
Maybe
Yeah.
we are planning to commit some crime. Isliye we want to read about it.
Moving
Legal
on very
judgments.
fast from that because I do not like that this is going to be broadcasted to the public. I don't know if we want that. Amrit, you will
uh,
start with your topic first.
this is such a amazing transition by Akash कि मैं कैसे धन्यवाद कैसे कह सकता हूँ आकाश को इस बारे में.
You're welcome.
But we decided that none of us, before we start talking, let's just describe the topic. The case that we are going to describe or try to describe is the Keshavananda Bharti case. Keshavananda Bharti versus State of Kerala, 1973. A disclaimer before we go into this: none of us have any sort of a legal background. I might, मतलब for me the closest would be कि मेरी पत्नी lawyer है, तो उसके beyond हम में से किसी का भी कोई legal background नहीं है. So we do not
नहीं.
want to at any point
Yes.
of this make it appear कि हमें exact details of any aspect of this पता होंगे. हमें एक general overview और उसका impact पता है इस केस का क्या है, which is what I'd like to present. कि 2021 में इसकी क्या वैल्यू होती है कोरोना के टाइम एंड आई गेस पोस्ट कॉलेज पीरियड में it is very interesting to see lot of narratives going around कि देश बदल रहा है, देश इसी तरीके से है. But the interesting thing, as especially in the downtime that I had during Corona, was that I just realized with whatever I read or whatever I try to learn, yes, सही में हमें actually idea नहीं है चीज़ों का. Like the more I read, the more lesser I feel I know about things. Like it कम पता है, हमें इतना idea ही नहीं है. Because there is
General.
a yeah, like it just feels like there is this like now a lot of people feel like कि चीजें बहुत extreme है or they will feel either they're extremely good or extremely bad. People think like कि this time that we are living in is like I can't believe our country has come to this. In all countries, not just India, people have extreme opinions of both sides. So it was very interesting to see that actually this time is not particularly special. Like लोगों को लगता है कि majority सरकार होती है तो मतलब ऐसा अभी हो रहा है, ऐसा ऐसे extreme decisions अभी जैसे इंडिया में इतने protest हुए हैं citizenship वाले एक्ट के बारे में, अभी फार्म लॉस के प्रोटेस्ट चल रहे हैं. There are lots of things where people are very blatantly polarized. So it was amusing and kind of sad, but it gave me a lot of hope to know that we have had extreme situations before. And by extreme, I'm not trying to say good or bad. I'm saying situations where it felt like we were against, there didn't seem to be a correct way out. And that is where this case becomes so interesting. So the Keshavananda Bharti versus State of Kerala case happened in 1973. अब to इसमें जो technical jargon है and where I will very thoroughly apologize to anyone listening. यार again disclaimer, we aren't particularly sure, but this is what I as a layperson understood. Our constitution जो हमारा संविधान है जो सबसे which is the holy book of the country, it came into effect in 1950. There are three things in it. One was added later, but three things in it that most people should be aware of. One is a very common term, fundamental rights. It is said कि जो fundamental rights सबके पास होना चाहिए. ठीक है? And it's very जो understand कि like these are the rights you need to be a functional human being. Then there is something called, that is a bit confusing, but the DPSP, the Directive Principles of State Policy. डीपीएसपी का मतलब सिंपली ये था कि जो हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन मेकर्स थे दे सेड कि यार हम रूल नहीं बना रहे, दीज आर नॉट रूल्स बट दीज आर गाइडलाइंस दैट वी आर एडिंग टू दिस कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन जो गवर्नमेंट को होपफुली फॉलो करने चाहिए. बट वेरी क्रूशली यू कैन नॉट गो एंड आस्क अ कोर्ट कि मुझको ये दो. Like there is something mentioned in a DPSP in the constitution and I am not getting it. बट जो फंडामेंटल राइट्स हैं, ये फंडामेंटल राइट्स का स्पेशलिटी सिर्फ एक चीज है. देयर इज अ आर्टिकल व्हिच सेज, द आर्टिकल 32, कि बोलता है कि अगर एक इंडियन सिटीजन बोले कि मेरा फंडामेंटल राइट वायलेट हुआ है, वो डायरेक्टली सुप्रीम कोर्ट के पास जा सकता है. डायरेक्टली उसके भी 5 फॉर्म होते हैं which I won't go into, but essentially the beauty of a fundamental right is that you can straight away apply to the Supreme Court. This is what I understood from it. Third thing is something that was added much later, which is called fundamental duties. Again, very self-explanatory. एक नागरिक को तो क्या कहते हैं, ये संविधान की बताता है कि तुम्हें क्या करना चाहिए. एक अच्छे नागरिक हो तो तुम्हारी सर्टेन ड्यूटीज क्या है जो हम चाहते हैं कि आप फॉलो करो. So these three things exist is all we need to know. So what happened after the constitution was made is कि हमारे कंट्री में अगेन 3 डिविजन्स आती हैं. देयर इज अ लेजिस्लेटिव, वो क्या होता है, जो जिनको हम वोट देकर अंदर डालते हैं, जो हमारे पार्लियामेंट में बैठते हैं, दे मेक द लॉस. एग्जीक्यूटिव, वो कौन होते हैं, वो पीपल हमारे ऑफ सिविल सर्वेंट्स एंड पीपल लाइक दैट. एंड थर्ड एंड मोस्ट द जुडिशरी, हु आर दे, आर जजेस, आर हाई कोर्ट, सुप्रीम कोर्ट, डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल, 3 लेवल पे वो जजेस होते हैं. तो व्हाट हैपेंड इन पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंट इंडिया इज समथिंग दैट इज फॉरगॉटन इज कि पार्टीशन के बाद इंडिया ने डिसाइड किया कि हम रिलीजन के बेस पे नहीं, और हम एक यूनियन ऑफ स्टेट्स हैं, अलग अलग डिफरेंट ट्रेडिशंस हैं हमारे. एंड वी फॉर्म्ड द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन वाज एसेंशियली अ डॉक्यूमेंट विच सेड कि we do not give preference to any particular religion, community, any of those things. We do not follow any sort of laws which infringe on people's rights, personal liberty, freedom of speech वगैरह. 1950 में for a young country like ours, we had a very beautifully evolved, very complicated. One of the drawbacks of our constitution is that आपको ये समझने में इतना टाइम लग जाएगा. While saying all these words, I get confused कि यार इतने parts है इसके. But the beauty of it is कि उसमें इतने provisions डाल रखे हैं उन्होंने कि it becomes impossible, that it becomes very short of something blatantly bad happening. It has covered most of the biggest issues that we are dealing with, and that shows you
Yeah, more
the
factors.
the foresight of the people who were writing it. Like they were able to see कि यार ये जो नया young देश है, which has been built in such pain. Not only were we fighting among the British, we have to understand we had a linguistic and religious partition that happened as well,
Divisions.
division that happened. तो उसके बाद that's how India came into being. So what started happening is there was one dominating and one party in power for the first 20 plus years, and people think that अभी 303, 280 जो भारतीय जनता पार्टी के अभी वो majority है, that's quite brute. But in its heyday, the Congress would get 300, 350, very high amount. So what does it mean? So what happens is in the one India का beauty ये था कि in a country which had such a strong party like the INC, in a small state like Kerala, there was a communist government, which was once, by the way, removed by the central government. 1959 में a democratically elected government was removed. But the communist government had a land reform policy. क्या करते थे, excess land वगैरह में के cases में they would appropriate it for common and social good. So there was a temple in the northernmost district of Kerala called the Edenir Mutt. तो वहां से शुरू, उनके जो सीनियर मोस्ट प्रीस्ट थे, हेड प्रीस्ट थे, उनका नाम था केशवनंदा भारती. तो उनकी जमीन भी इस लैंड रिफॉर्म बिल के अंदर जाने वाली थी. इस केस में जब हम आते हैं 1973 में हम पहुंचे हैं, तो 1960-70s में इंडिया हैज फॉट वॉर्स अगेंस्ट चाइना. इंडिया हैज फॉट 2 wars against China, and India has had has had a war with Pakistan also 71 में. So what has happened?
So temple का land, no?
टेम्पल का लैंड,
Sorry, temple.
टेम्पल का
Okay.
लैंड, टेम्पल का लैंड इज बीइंग अप्रोप्रिएटेड बाय द. तो अब क्या होता है, 60s से a trend is starting to appear in India. What is happening is जो जुडिशरी है, जो हमारे जजेस हैं, हमने बोला ना हमारे तीनों लेजिस्लेटिव, एग्जीक्यूटिव और जुडिशरी अलग है. These are 3 separate entities नाम के लिए. Even though our legislative and executive are bound very closely, जुडिशरी अलग है. तो they have been making judgments which the government is not liking. तो इसका समझ आया तुम्हें, इसका कॉमेडी शो क्या है? इवन दो दे आर सेपरेट, द गवर्नमेंट इन पावर इज नॉट लाइकिंग एनी ऑफ द सुप्रीम कोर्ट जजमेंट्स, बिकॉज सुप्रीम कोर्ट ऐसे जजमेंट्स निकाल रहा है कि आप डिसीजन कुछ भी ले लो, बट आप फंडामेंटल राइट्स को नहीं छू सकते. फंडामेंटल राइट्स पे इन्फ्रिंज होने वाला कोई भी लॉ गलत है. तो अब हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन का एक और विच सम पीपल कंसिडर वीकनेस है, बट स्ट्रेंथ भी है. हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन मेकर्स ने बोला कि देखो हम ये लॉ 1950 में बना रहे हैं, We have to give you the right as the times change to be able to amend this. So they add the only other section that I want to mention. They insert article 368 also. 368 is the right of parliament to amend the constitution. So what the government in power does, I think this is the Indira Gandhi government at that point. They say, अच्छा अगर सुप्रीम कोर्ट हमारी बात नहीं मानेगा तो हम कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ही बदल देंगे. So they passed, which became very famous, the 24th and 25th constitutional amendments, which, without going into too much detail, they completely nullify the power of the court to intervene in any of these decisions. तो basically मान लो कि जो हमारा party at the center decides, the courts also cannot protect a citizen. And that
So this is basically done. Was this done to get more control or like control
100%
people?
this was done कि देखो अगर हम कोर्ट में नहीं जीत पा रहे, because उनको I think for them it was like we are trying to push through a reform and तुम फालतू में हमारे against judgment दे रहे हो. So what we'll do is हम law ही बदल देंगे. बात ये होगी ना, if I'm on a cricket field and I am losing the game, but in the last over I say कि okay, now my score goes up by 200 runs. You try to score now. It's that logic. I'll just change the rules of the game altogether. So what
Basically,
the
what
government
Trump is trying to do.
exactly कि like मैं मुझे fraud मुझे declare. That's why I said at the beginning कि हमें जो चीजें अभी new या unique लगती हैं या चीजें देखकर हम बहुत गुस्सा हो जाते हैं, things bigger than this have happened before. And there are brave people who stood up, because it's a sign of hope for me कि there are people who stood up and took a stand which has lasting impacts now. So what happens in 1973? ये कोर्ट में एक I think नाना भाई पालकीवाला was a lawyer who went to केशवनंदा भारती and said कि देखो आप केस फाइल करो सुप्रीम कोर्ट में, बोलो कि ये जो आपने 24th और 25th अमेंडमेंट पास करे हैं और एक 29th अमेंडमेंट के अंदर भी जो आपने रूल्स है ये मेरे वो फंडामेंटल राइट्स को वायलेट कर रहे हैं. तो हमने शुरुआत में एक बात बोली थी, इफ एन इंडियन सिटीजन बिलीव्स दैट देयर फंडामेंटल राइट इज being affected or infringed upon, then they can directly approach the Supreme Court. So very straight away वो Supreme Court में जाते हैं. And that is where we come to the crux of why this judgment is important.
A quick
Supreme,
question. इसमें ये जो land reform तूने बताया था, that was the state reform.
state reform. So
Okay.
they sue the court. They sue
Got
the
it.
state of
Actually,
Kerala.
Amrit,
हाँ भाई.
sorry, just so quick. We talked about fundamental rights. Could we just go over the six really quick? The
Yeah,
six
yeah. The
fundamental
6
rights, so that
fundamental
as a
rights.
reference, everyone knows.
Yeah, the fundamental rights are covered under Part 3 of the Indian Constitution. Part 3 का कोई complicated मतलब नहीं है. Part 1 is कि इंडिया का यूनियन और स्टेट्स के बारे में. Part 2 में exactly क्या मुझे याद नहीं. Part 3 is fundamental rights and Part 4 is directive principles of state policy. Part 3 में there are 6 rights which come under, which are right to equality, right to freedom, right against exploitation, right to freedom of religion, cultural and educational rights, and right to constitutional remedies. Right to constitutional remedies के अंदर आता है Article 32, which is our direct any उसके लिए तुम जा सकते हो Supreme Court के पास. Oh yeah, no, I think Part 2 of Indian Constitution is citizenship से related. So basically इन्होंने क्लब कर रखा है कि पता हो कि किधर क्या देखना है. तो Part 3 of the Indian Constitution is the actual strength of the Constitution, because any of us can write a rule of book of laws. See, and that is why what the government in power was trying to do is to take away that very power. कि tomorrow तुम अगर सुप्रीम कोर्ट में केस भी डाल दो कि यार ये सरकार is taking away my fundamental right, the Supreme Court will say यार I'm sorry, our hands are tied. ये देखो इन्होंने लॉ ही बदल दिया, I'm sorry, things have changed completely. So what the Supreme Court does in this Keshavananda Bharti case is they say कि यार ये जो आपने अमेंडमेंट पास किया है ना कि हम फंडामेंट, तो इन्होंने अमेंडमेंट ये पास करवाया था कि पार्लियामेंट अगर कोई रूल बनाए, पार्लियामेंट के पास हक है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन का बदलने का, बिकॉज वी आर द इलेक्टेड रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स ऑफ द पीपल. हम तो लोगों की ही आवाज हैं, तो हम क्यों नहीं बदल सकते लॉ. इट इज अ रेटरिक यू आर हियरिंग इन ईच कंट्री राइट नाउ कि अगर कोई कंट्रोवर्शियल लॉ आता है सब क्या बोलते हैं, इट्स द पार्टी मजॉरिटेरियन गवर्नमेंट, उनकी पॉलिसी है तो इट्स द वॉइस ऑफ द पीपल. तो इसमें सुप्रीम कोर्ट एड्स अ वेरी ब्यूटीफुल कैवियट व्हिच प्रोटेक्ट्स आवर कंट्री टू दिस डे. दे से कि देखो यू कैन चेंज द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, बट there is no decision which any parliament, majority ho, minority ho, या कुछ भी हो, that can change the basic structure of the constitution. This confused people. What do you mean by doctrine of basic structure? And this was passed by a 13 people bench. 13 bench मतलब 13 judge बैठे थे Supreme Court में, and it was passed by a 7-6 majority. मतलब it came right to the edge. ठीक है. And this is one of the biggest bench that ever sat. Like I think that's something ये law के लोग बहुत serious हो जाते हैं कि जितनी बड़ी bench मतलब उतने सारे लोगों ने deliberate किया. It makes them very excited. But 7-6, it's a huge thing into them. To us हमारे जानने की बात है कि उन्होंने बस रोक दिया. And they introduced a caveat जो आज which changed India as we see it in many ways. Simply because उन्होंने एक safeguard बना दिया. उन्होंने एक ऐसी दीवार बना दी, क्योंकि लॉ का एक ब्यूटीफुल चीज है, एक बार एक जजमेंट में अगर एक तरीके से होना, वेरी रेयरली डू फ्यूचर जजमेंट्स गो अगेंस्ट इट. ये
In
एक
fact,
चीज है
future
जो
judgments are taken into consideration based on the past verdict.
बेस्ड ऑन द पास्ट जजमेंट्स, बिकॉज इट्स इजियर आल्सो ना कि हमने एक प्रेसिडेंट सेट कर रखा है.
Yeah.
सो हियर आर सुप्रीम कोर्ट सेव्ड अस फॉर लाइफ, because they said कि देखो यार, you see, because what it does is people now think that governments can push in any law, but the reason we have some sort of hope for the future is we have an independent judiciary. नाम में अभी judiciary के ऊपर बहुत सारे सवाल उठे last few years maybe, but this existed even then. Whichever government is in power, you will find questions raised about कि judiciary की क्या standing है. If you go into the details of the Keshavananda Bharti case, you will see that the judges who voted against it, कुछ साल बाद उनको CGI बनाने के वो हो गया था, and
Yeah.
there was huge cases कि ये they promotion के लिए कुछ भी करने को तैयार है. They tried to reopen the case. Thankfully, it wasn't
Which
allowed.
which makes me worry also a little bit that there are certain like in the judiciary as well, there are people who are favoring the government or
They're
are
human beings, Kevin.
part of the government.
Across
Yeah, they're
time,
human beings. That's as I was going to say.
across history, these decisions
It's
are not
always
being
been
taken
there.
by they will always be though. See, to understand that history is cyclical and that we are in many ways living out the same mistakes that our forefathers and ancestors make, and we are just probably a more informed yet probably dumber version of them, is what gives me hope. Because when the Supreme Court declares that there is a क्या कहते हैं, basic elements or basic structure of the constitution, nobody knows what to say. किसी को मतलब नहीं पता उसका. Like this is, अभी तक क्या होता था कि अगर तुम गवर्नमेंट के प्रो में हो तो you will go and say कि ये लिखा है लॉ में, and if you're against the government you will find law यहाँ से. Supreme Court throws an absolute curveball. There are basic elements of the constitution. तो इसका मतलब क्या है, ये बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर क्या होता है, इसका मतलब क्या है. एंड years में they have like listed out like certain terms कि stuff like the constitution is the most supreme, India is sovereign, constitution is secular, क्या कहते हैं, judiciary is completely free and independent, the power must be separated between legislature, executive and judiciary. बहुत ऐसे टर्म्स उन्होंने ऐसे लिखे जिसका हमारा एसेंशियली वो कोई नहीं है. बट इन्होंने इसका एक्चुअल यूज पता है क्या था? इसका एक्चुअल यूज ये था कि in the future and even now, if any overwhelmingly majoritarian or authoritative government comes into power, there will remain one trump card that our Supreme Court still holds. कि जितनी भी ताकत तुम्हारे पास आ जाए, जितनी भी ओवरवेलमिंगली पॉपुलर तुम्हारी गवर्नमेंट हो, अगर तुम कुछ ऐसा कर रहे हो which is going to go against the spirit of the constitution, there is a way to stop you. There is a way that if it can be proven by somebody who, because understand this, when they were going against a very powerful government, a government that would 3 years later declare an emergency under Article 352. So you have to understand, so this is a very powerful independence movement के time पे famous हुई party का government, and this safeguard was created then कि ताकत जितनी भी हो, हमारे पास future generations will have a way to judge कि क्या सही है क्या गलत है.
So curious, ये जो safeguard था जो judicially उसमें उन्होंने ऐड किया, ये verdict कहाँ से पास, सुप्रीम कोर्ट में पास हुआ, right?
Supreme Court's direct
7-6.
And
7-6. It was an
And
Article
did-
32 वाला ना. If a fundamental right is being affected, क्योंकि नाना भाई पालके वाला tells the engineer मठ के chief Keshavananda Bharti, he died last year actually, Keshavananda Bharti. So case को again got people talked about it. He went and told him कि देखो you have a case, ले जाओ Supreme Court, we can do this. We got this literally. Like वो लेके गए उनको. And वहाँ पे 76
Beavis,
verdict.
uh, sorry.
हाँ केविन पूछ. नहीं तो
No, no.
तो essentially what this has now turned into as the years go on is कि like a lot of our judgments, a lot of our judiciary has been given the teeth to defend against different governments. कि like you, if you pass an arbitrary rule, if you pass an arbitrary like a law, it comes into action, and it feels like ये जो spirit of the constitution, the heart of the constitution कि like हम एक equal land है, like we are a land of people who not just like नाम के लिए free, we are people who look like हम एक diverse group है, who may have different interests, who may have different beliefs, who may have different traditions, but ऐसा कुछ नहीं होना चाहिए which crushes an individual Indian citizen in any way. That is what the basic, in my understanding, the basic doctrine of like ki basic elements of the constitution, which was shown by the Supreme Court in this case, gave us. Because as the years have gone on, governments बहुत आई हैं आजकल के time में. Like the importance of this judgment, as I try to like wrap this whole thing up, is आजकल के टाइम में इट्स वेरी इजी फॉर अस टू बिकम पोलराइज्ड. हम बड़े गुस्से हो जाते हैं, समटाइम्स फ्रस्ट्रेट हो जाते हैं कि यार मेरे ही टाइम में आई एम विटनेसिंग द एंड ऑफ द वर्ल्ड, कि इतना इतना नेगेटिव है यार, आई कांट बिलीव द थिंग्स आई एम रीडिंग. आई थिंक अ लॉट ऑफ इट इज शेयर अमाउंट ऑफ पैरानोया, बट आल्सो अ लॉट ऑफ इट इज हम थोड़े इग्नोरेंट हैं ऑफ वेयर वी आवरसेल्व्स कम फ्रॉम. हमारे पहले भी ये लड़ाई हुई है, लड़ाइयाँ हुई हैं, मीनर थिंग्स हैव बीन सेड. It's probably because we consume it in a different way that we take it too much to heart. But these people fought for something that was never been even talked about. They invented a barrier which is going to protect our grandkids and beyond them also. And as long as this country remains in its current form, we are going to have this protection. कि
And
regardless of which government comes to power, coalition ho ya
this cannot be challenged, right? Ever
no,
they added that,
they
right?
Yeah,
tried
yeah, no, I'm
challenging it
reading
उसके
up on
बाद
it.
भी
That has
ऐसे
been challenged for immediately.
immediately. It was challenged
Uh,
immediately उसके बाद ना,
yeah.
उसके बाद they sat the bench again. That guy became CGI and it was tried. But then immediate the panel of judges
Hmm.
in themselves said कि यार किसी ने review मांगा नहीं तो तुम क्यों कर रहे हो? And that's the aspect of it. Like when it happened, nobody realized how big a victory it was. It's only future में, as people started understanding कि oh my god, this the concept of a doctrine of a basic structure enables and stops anyone from releasing arbitrary laws. Because see, our constitution makers were fighting a country that was not only partition, which do not know how to get along under any form. ठीक है, we had 562 50 562 princely states को एक साथ लाना था. उसके बीच में our constitution makers came up with this constitution. बट उसमें एक ऑब्वियसली वो फ्लॉ था कि कि यू कैन अमेंड द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, तो बदल सकते हैं. और किसी की उतनी एब्सोल्यूट, उनको लगा कि सब कुछ डिस्कशन में चलेगा, बट दे प्रोबेबली आल्सो फोर्स कि उन्हीं की जो पार्टी होगी वही उन्हीं के लोग आगे जाके लॉ के साथ उस तरीके से खेलेंगे. आई डोंट थिंक दे पर्टिकुलरली एक्सपेक्टेड दैट उस पॉइंट में. But then to see that exact system help, like repeated constitutional amendments, because you have to understand we had 24 constitutional amendments from 1950 when the constitution came into force to till 1970. From 1970 to 78 we had another 23. तो इतनी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के मजे लिए जा रहे थे एसेंशियली कि जो ताकत में जो भी आ रहा है दे विल पास इट. कि इन्होंने ये रूल बनाया, हम तो उल्टा रूल बनाएंगे, हमने बनाया तो हम ये बनाएंगे. पर उससे होता क्या है? द बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर एंश्योर्स कि तुम जितने भी वाहियात रूल्स बना दो, तुम सिटीजन्स को छू नहीं सकते. विच आई थिंक इज वन ऑफ द मोस्ट ब्यूटीफुल थिंग्स अबाउट आवर country. The hope it gives our people is that regardless of how obscenely terrifying these times seem, अभी तुम टीवी और वो देखोगे तो like we are very divided in the way we talk, but it's like there are things that exist done by great people, much greater people than whom we see today, that ensure that there is some sign of hope. Any person can, if they have the right information, under Article 32, if you get nothing else from this, if you are an Indian and you believe कि तुम्हारे वो जो 6 right केविन ने हमसे बुलवाए थे, like equality, freedom against exploitation, freedom of religion, cultural and educational rights, and right to constitutional remedies, इनमें से किसी भी 6 में अगर infringement होती है, you can actually go and directly an Indian citizen go to the Supreme Court under Article 32 and say कि देखो मेरे साथ ऐसा हुआ है.
One thing,
That's
I'm
something I'm
reading
saying.
some an article on indiatvnews.com. So I'm not sure how good it is. I've never. So outcomes and implications of the judgment. The 39th Amendment, because of this, the 39th Amendment prohibited any challenge to the election of the President, Vice President, Speaker, and Prime Minister, irrespective of the electoral malpractice. This was a clear attempt to nullify the adverse Allahabad High Court ruling against Indira Gandhi. So,
Yeah, she
yeah,
1975 में she lost the case against Raj
okay.
Narayan, जिसके बाद उन्होंने वो emergency declare करी थी. तो but वो आगे जाके it gets further
Okay.
amended and those a lot of those provisions were removed.
Okay. And then there was, yeah,
A
okay.
lot of people don't realize right now because the way we access information, unfortunately, is very. Uh, it seems across कि अरे यार कंट्री डूबने वाली है, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन चेंज हो जाएगा, ये हो जाएगा, बट लॉट ऑफ पीपल डोंट रियलाइज द हिस्टोरिकल कॉन्टेक्स्ट उसके पीछे. लाइक so many people have actually given their lives for it, and the way they have made this constitution of India, it's actually uh, one of maybe the best parts of India, right? So many things are well protected for the rights of Indian citizen, but a lot of people don't realize just because of sheer panic and how the media and everything portrays these days.
Lack of information है भाई. देख मैं मुझे law as a subject इतना boring लगता था ना. When I read the actual bare act of the constitution, bare act is where they strip it down to the just the act, literally as it sounds. एक book होती है जो law के बच्चे पढ़ते हैं, तो मैंने obviously पत्नी से चुरा के एक दो किताबें पढ़ो. It will seem so complicated कि तुम्हें पढ़ने का मन नहीं करेगा. But then you understand that that is where the problem starts. If you're तुम्हें बदलाव भी चाहिए, तुम्हें गुस्सा आता है, you see a news and you're like this party good, this party bad, ये इंसान गंदा है, देखो इसने ऐसा बोला, मेरा emotion hurt हो गया. But there is so much more to our people and our country than that. There is just so much more that is actually happening. Positives, negatives bhi hai. I'm not saying you should not look at negatives. I'm saying there are options. Essentially, you are not as helpless as you think you are, would essentially be my thing. Like that there is information about normal things that you can do to safeguard yourself and your loved ones. And I think one of the biggest drawbacks of the entire thing would be that जब कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन लिखा जा रहा था, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन असेंबली जो बनाई गई थी उस वक्त, they were the people who sat together and wrote the constitution, deliberated on it. They also said कि it's very wordy, कॉमन मैन को ये समझाना बहुत मुश्किल होगा. The constitution was translated into हिंदी वगैरह कुछ mid late 80s में or something, if I'm not wrong, and that's quite bad. Obviously this constitution is a protector of the poor, irony being by the time it reaches them it's usually
Hmm.
quite late. But the thing is that these are still ironclad safeguards which protect the people regardless of how hard it is for it to reach them. But at least that these safeguards exist because it's written
I
in
don't
law.
expect कि people can understand. Like I don't think any layman can just वो बैठ के constitution पढ़ लेगा तो उनको समझ में आ जाएगा, right? Because it also depends on how you perceive it. It's not like just आपको, it's not black and white. इतना भी नहीं होता. So I think that's where all the judiciary comes into picture. Like all the lawyers, judges, all these courts, the जो democratic system set up किया हुआ है, that's where it comes into play. But obviously people nowadays they don't even, they, because of such a black and, they think everything is black and white, they think it's hard to even trust that system. Like
भाई
people don't trust the
हमारा
judges
ही देखना.
nowadays.
We are so-called people who have access to a lot of these things. I didn't have any of this idea until last year about the details of a lot of these things.
Yeah.
Like for me, I just knew the name of the case. I had basic idea कि हाँ बहुत बड़ी चीज हुई थी. क्या हुआ था कोई घंटा idea. But I read about it last year and I just couldn't believe it कि इन्होंने ऐसी
Mhm.
चीज बनाई. And like I talked to a legal student who said ये इतना boring case था यार, तुम्हें interest कैसे आ रहा है इसमें? But I was like, the implication is mind-boggling. Like in the face of such an overwhelming pressure and majority, those 7 judges had the guts to choose this and invent a basic structure. Ki, like, this will be something that will protect, will can be used as a reference point deeper into the future for hundreds of years, and not something which was even originally envisioned by the makers of our constitution, which
Yeah,
is
it's
what makes
valid
it
even
so much
right
more
now. I
special
mean,
to
if
me.
people are scared कि अभी current government who has majority and who has all the powers, they can change the constitution for whatever reason. I don't think it's that straightforward. It's not
It's
straightforward
never
for
been that
anyone.
straightforward. If
Yeah.
you look into the details of the biggest legislations that are being used right now, you'll see a lot of, in many people might call trickery, many people will call wordings, but that's the thing. In each of these things, it has to stand a constitutional test. Now, and when then people say, "Ki, nahi, what if the judiciary is not independent? Judiciary pe bhi kisi ka haath hai." Then it's like we have, for me, yeah, pata hai kya biggest cheez hai? I'm not saying that everything is going to turn into utopia once again. For me, it gives me hope that we've been through this before. This has happened.
Much
हमारे
worse, in
देश में
fact.
यंगेस्ट में, and in a much worse way. But see, अर्नब उसका रिवर्स ये भी है कि we never know the implications क्या हो सकता है आगे जाके. We can never
Mhm.
say. I agree right now कि it was in a much worse and much more blatant way, but
Yeah.
right now it I don't that
Uh,
that still exist because
just repeat it again. Your
Oh, your
voice
voice.
cut out. Just repeat
Yeah.
it.
अच्छा आवाज आ रही
Yeah,
है.
now it's coming.
Yep.
हाँ, because to me it just gives me hope that these walls still do exist. Like हम उतने भी खाली नहीं हैं जितना people would have us believe, that we still are. Our forefathers were really intelligent people. The people who sat down and wrote our great country's constitution had they really cared कि आगे जाके इस देश में क्या होता है. And sometimes it's very easy to let go of that identity कि like हाँ यहाँ पे ऐसा हो रहा है, वैसा हो रहा है, ऐसा हो रहा है, वैसा हो रहा है. But there were really intelligent, concerned people who made
Who
sure
protected our
that
rights, kind of thing.
हमारी जो Indian identity है,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, who thought for us.
Yeah.
And we had a Supreme Court which had the guts to
Hmm.
stand up to tyranny. So
I
hats off
वो
to
ना
them.
it's they have put a pretty good balance वहाँ पे कि you with time you can जितना मुझे समझ में आ रहा है obviously as Amrit mentioned we are not from a law
hmm
background or anything but जितना समझ में आ रहा है कि government has certain powers with time they can amend certain things but there are certain core framework है which cannot be touched from what I
Which
understand.
exactly तुम उस एहसास को नहीं छू
hmm
सकते.
Yeah.
तुम कर लो ऊपर नीचे जितना करना है, पर तुम उस एहसास को नहीं छू सकते. एंड आवर जुडिशरी डज मोर ब्यूटीफुल थिंग्स टू चेंज वो. जैसे पहले इंडिया में होता था कि तुम झंडा नहीं उड़ा सकते थे. लाइक तुम झंडा नहीं उड़ा सकते थे. इट हैड टू बी अ फ्लैग कोड होता था. लाइक तुम्हारे में फिर एक नवीन जिंदल नाम के इंसान ने केस किया था कि these are called inferred judgments. द आर्टिकल एक है 19 जो हमारा है जिसमें फ्रीडम ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन वगैरह आता है, फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच एंड एक्सप्रेशन, जिस पे लोग बहुत लड़ते रहते हैं. सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बोला कि यार झंडा उड़ाना भी हमारा फ्रीडम ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन है. फिर किसी ने बोला कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट मुझे बताओ, मुझे जानना है कि मैं जिसके लिए वोट कर रहा हूँ इस पे कितने क्रिमिनल केस हैं, बताओ मुझे. तो वो बोले तुम्हें क्या ये जान के क्या करोगे. तो उन्होंने बोला ये जान के मैं बेटर डिसीजन ले सकता हूँ मैं किसके लिए वोट कर रहा हूँ. एंड सुप्रीम कोर्ट यूज्ड आर्टिकल 19 फ्रीडम ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन कि दिस विल हेल्प पीपल अपना वो राइट ऑफ वोटिंग वगैरह ढंग से एक्सप्रेस करने में. So you'll see these judgments which fall under it, like
Oh,
जो
that's
right
an
to life
interesting
है.
judgment. So उसके बाद
Yeah,
से सब now people are started
yeah.
revealing all these things.
No, then it became like a thing ना कि ऑफिशियली ऑनलाइन पोस्ट करना किया. There was an association for democratic reforms. उन्होंने केस डाला कि देखो
Hmm.
वोटर डिटेल्स नहीं है तो लोग क्या करेंगे. तो दे यूज द
Correct.
फ्रीडम ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन फंडामेंटल राइट, आर्टिकल 21 राइट टू लाइफ एंड पर्सनल डिग्निटी जो है उसका, दैट हैज बीन यूज्ड टू ऐड सो मेनी लॉज बाय द सुप्रीम कोर्ट, लाइक राइट टू ह्यूमन डिग्निटी, राइट टू मैरी जो अभी रिसेंटली लास्ट ईयर हदिया केस हुआ था, यहाँ पे केरला में केस हुआ था, लाइक राइट टू अच्छा एनवायरनमेंट. So many laws have been used as inferred judgments कि हमने बेसिक कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को लिया
Parliament.
और हमारे जुडिशरी ने एक्सटेंड किया एज अ राइट. राइट टू प्राइवेसी has been added based on an inferred judgment of the constitution,
Challenged.
which shows you when our judiciary is functioning correctly and the beauty of our constitution, we are truly protected.
Yeah, I think keyword is key basically, and Supreme Courts they don't make the laws. They give judgments, and based on that, it eventually it can turn into a law. I think law
When we
has to
say,
be passed by Parliament, right?
yeah, law is usually passed by the parliament, legislature का काम होता है. It can come under judicial review.
Yeah.
वो है. That is something that तुम किसी भी चीज के अंडर पास करो, it has the ability to be challenged. Judicial review में है कि अगर ये कोई blatant fundamental right वो हो रहा है या नहीं. अभी जैसे सेंट्रल विस्टा केस हुआ है हमारा पार्लियामेंट का, उसका इट वाज पास इन 2:1 जजमेंट हुआ उसमें कि पार्लियामेंट बना रहे हो बट आपने वो नहीं दिया, तो उसमें वो जो थर्ड जो जज है जिन्होंने वोट अगेंस्ट किया था अगेंस्ट द न्यू पार्लियामेंट बिल्डिंग का, वो कह रहे थे कि वेल दिस इज लाइक लास्ट वीक का वो कि
हम्म।
कंट्री जहाँ पे हम डिस्कस नहीं करते एक दूसरे से कोई भी नई चीज पास करने के बारे में, अगर हम एनवायरमेंटल इंफॉर्मेशन वी डू नॉट मेक इट अवेलेबल टू द पब्लिक कि इसका एनवायरमेंटल इम्पैक्ट क्या होगा, दिल्ली इज अ वेरी क्रैम्प्ड प्लेस, तो इतनी मेजर कंस्ट्रक्शन होती है तो ऑब्वियसली देयर विल बी पोल्यूशन फियर्स, इकोसिस्टम पे अफेक्ट पड़ेगा। एंड इसका एग्जैक्ट नीड क्या है जब हम एक कोरोना के बीच में हैं और पैसे इतने सारे जाएंगे उसमें 2022 के अनवेल होने से पहले। So it shows you that at that level also there are people who are okay with questioning what would appear to be an overwhelming majority openly. It's in a
Yeah.
judgment. It's not a hidden thing that judge, Supreme Court judge put it in an official judgment in the 2:1 judgment. Fair enough. The 2:1 the project is approved, but there was a voice which also said, "Ki, let's talk about what the other side is arguing about."
Mm-hmm.
So that I think is a very hopeful sign for all our doomsday predictions, I think.
Also, I think trusting the
Just one addition, I think.
बोल क्या?
I was just going to say one addition I would say is probably like making this a requirement for every person in future generation to learn at a very young age so that they don't
11th
need
12th
to
में बस
read up.
11th
Not
12th में केविन आई थिंक आर्ट जो बच्चों को जो ह्यूमैनिटीज का पूरा वो भूत होता है उनका, आई थिंक कुछ पॉलिटिकल साइंस वगैरह में दे सी पार्ट्स ऑफ द पॉलिटी,
they
दे
say
उनको
it.
बताते हैं.
No, but every person
Every
needs to
Indian
know
must
these
know
things,
this.
right? It's a
You must
citizen
know.
thing.
Yeah, man, my
Exactly.
British school didn't teach me shit on this.
You don't have, you
Akash, your
hey
British school didn't teach
Akash,
anything.
you guys don't have a written constitution, right?
We have a Magna Carta, which is our Bill of Rights. Basically, that's all we have.
No, you guys never wrote a constitution because
No,
see,
no.
the Americans were under like foreign control, so they had to like from the start come together and make something. Same with India, हम colonial rule के अंडर एक independent country थे. तुम्हारा इतने टाइम से आजाद आजाद था कि they have such
Akash, you can do one
built-in
thing. You
वो.
can steal our constitution. वो भी कर सकते हो. It's okay. बहुत सारी चीजें वैसे ही ले गए हो.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
You can just copy
Oh,
that. It's
yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah, on that fruitful note,
No, no,
Akash.
it's ours only. What rubbish.
Oh please, हमारे
I was
बी आर
gonna say, but
अम्बेडकर
it's
जी ने
pretty funny
बनाया है.
that the government straight away when the verdict was announced, the government straight away tried to challenge it again and reopen the whole thing straight away.
It's the reality of politics,
Yeah,
ना
it
भाई.
is.
Yes.
और क्या कर
It's
सकते हैं?
just
Yeah, like Akash, like Amrit said, like even your judiciary
hmm
consists of human beings who are uh, likely to fall under
हम
influence of
हम
someone or
ऐसे
the
बात
other.
करते हैं
So
कभी कभी
it's
कि हम
possible.
सब एक स्टैंडर्ड के ऊपर है, जब when push comes to shove it's very hard to show great high amount of character in those situations when you are
yeah.
offered like I don't even know ये लोगों को कितने पैसे देते होते हैं या क्या पोजीशन प्रेस्टीज, what is your price essentially,
Yeah.
so
And lots of judgments I have no. I'm pretty sure. I mean, we don't give them enough credit. Like especially judicial system को वो जो वहाँ पे जो बैठा है CGI, we have to understand they have lot of experience, lot of power, lot of influence. They are not dumb. अपन we very easily say कि अरे यार ये क्यों किया वो क्यों किया, but we have no freaking clue उस level पे क्या चल रहा होता है. And I'm pretty sure they are not dumb people कि just for money they will make some decision,
no,
right?
the thing is it
But
especially in recent years like पहले 70s में the number of people who are aware of constitution what's happening were quite few relative scale में. Now a lot more people are there, so there is a lot more scrutiny. Like
Mm-hmm.
there are recent अभी the like this high अभी आंध्र प्रदेश में जगन मोहन रेड्डी is having issues with the high court judges saying कि यार ये ना हमारे against वो कर रहे हैं, तो the guy actually tried to initiate proceedings to dismiss the government, like the central government अगर the central government can technically say things like state में अगर constitutional mechanism fail हो गया, so under article 356 which is president's rule can be imposed. Imagine a majority elected state government can be dismissed. Thankfully then CGI stepped in and said कि देखो ऐसी पागलपंती मत करो, it
Yeah.
cannot be done, it is very disturbing, ऐसा उन्होंने statement निकाला. But that's one example. So while you are correct कि we don't know कि उस level पे not all their things are wrong, But we also can't give anyone a clean blankets कि इन्होंने ऐसी कोई गलती ही नहीं करी, because there are
No,
cases
I'm
which
not
I
saying
don't
कि
want to talk about.
जैसे
There are
अभी
cases
तूने
I don't.
एग्जांपल दिया वो नए पार्लियामेंट के लिए 2:1. द फैक्ट इज कि वहां पे इट्स नॉट लाइक वन पर्सन अलोन इज मेकिंग दैट डिसीजन. द फैक्ट इज दे यूजुअली
Yeah,
हैव अ प्रीटी
there was a
कॉम्प्लेक्स
three-person
प्रोसीजर.
bench of there was a
या
three-person bench of very highly क्या कहते qualified people who gave
एंड
a
बिगर द केस मोर नंबर ऑफ पीपल आर इन दैट बेंच यूजुअली.
higher वाली bench बैठते हैं. But
या
yeah, I think तीन या पांच से ज्यादा जाती नहीं है. केशवानंदा भारती was the biggest, if I'm not wrong, 13 people. 13 लोगों की
ओके.
bench बैठी थी, तो
So it's not
still
like it's
beyond
only
everyone.
one person is making a decision वहाँ पे. So end of the day, you might not agree with the decision, which is fine. Which you have the right to. You can always voice your opinion in a democratic country, right? You can always voice your opinion. You can always protest. But end of the day, you have to trust a certain source. And I think वहाँ पे मुझे लगता है कि people should trust Supreme Court. That's why they have Sessions Court, High Court, all the way.
नहीं
There's a
नहीं,
ladder for it, right?
and in these cases especially,
People are always going to question,
नहीं
right?
Arnav,
Because someone
it's
is going to be pro decision,
someone is
someone is
going to
going to be
lose
against.
out.
It's always going to
Protest is
happen.
not the issue. The thing is, we
Exactly.
have the right to go to the Supreme Court directly. That according to me
Yeah.
is the biggest.
Yeah.
That वो आर्टिकल 32 का जो ताकत है, that exists for every Indian citizen. So you can.
But Supreme Court can also reject it pretty straightforward if they think it's not a valid
Yeah,
case.
yeah. See, but that's the thing, right? That's where you said that trust factor comes. कि
Yeah.
तुम इसमें point क्या है? Like इसका does it literally going to be something that
Because lots of people actually do that. They directly go
Yeah,
to Supreme Court
भाई
and then they reject the
PIL
petition right away.
इंडिया का PIL सिस्टम, पब्लिक इंटरेस्ट लिटिगेशन, लोग मजे मजे में कोई टीवी पे कुछ देख
Yeah.
लिया, मैंने इस पे PIL छाप दिया, इसको निकाल दो यहाँ से, कुछ नहीं होता. अभी 19 when I was reading up on this case, they were talking about 60s में महाराष्ट्र में एक DH लॉरेंस करके वो है, उसने बुक निकाली थी, तो उसमें कुछ स्टीमी पैसेजेस हैं, तो एक अंकल ने केस डाल दिया कि इसको बैन करो, यहाँ पे अलाउ नहीं कर सकते ऐसा, there are steamy passages in this book. And the Supreme Court in 1965 said, 1965, socho, said कि okay, we can't
You should
we
ask
can't
him. You should ask the uncle. How do you know about this?
they're like they said we cannot use the morality laws of the past in the present in 1965. I'm just saying that gives you hope. Like abhi right now ये तो हर चीज ban हो रही है, right, left and center. But there are, like I said, there are bright spots that you can look at. Is how I see it.
Yep.
Like some uncle just said, too many steamy scenes, man. We have to get this removed. We have to go
In
to
a
court
book, bro.
to get
I
this.
In a
mean,
book. अर्नव याद है जब चेतन भगत की वो बुक निकली थी पहले?
as long as
It's
as long as they don't ban beef, I'm good. It's my right of expression as well.
मैंने इसको अभी इतनी देर से किस चीज पे बात करी और इसके दिमाग में एंड में क्या आया?
Seriously.
It's comical, you know. That is why I said it. It's funny.
Kevin, you are the problem.
So we will continue.
You know?
So
I
we
do
will
agree
continue this
with that as
topic in the
well.
next episode. Next episode, the topic was going to be the Nanavati case. Is going to be the Nanavati case. So we'll go into
Technical throat issues.
throat
की
issue.
वजह से we'll go it afterwards.
For some reason, that sounds wrong, but that's just my mind. Anyway, Arnav is just like holding his coughs in badly. Anyway, we're going to talk about current news today. Since there's nothing much to talk about, actually, because nothing happened. Oh no, the Capitol Hill in US got stormed. A huge news, and it's never happened like this before. I cannot imagine like one of the most prestigious buildings in the US, like well-known political buildings, apart from the White House, the Capitol building is the next one that something like this has happened. Like security breach and everything like this. How can something like this happen to a very important building? I don't understand.
I read somewhere that last time when it happened was in sometime in 1800s जब
18th century.
जब war चल रहा था. That was the time when it was actually, and now
It was actually invaded by the Puerto Rican rebels.
the way it happened.
Oh, I thought it was British. Okay.
Didn't the British burn it or something?
I thought it was
Didn't
British,
someone
but-
burn it? I don't know.
No, that was the 17th century,
Okay,
by the
okay.
way, I think.
They got independence
That
in
was before
the 18th century, 1776, right? Or 1783, one of those years.
No
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
You know, in British history, they
1776.
like bypass that completely. I honestly, they bypass that
ओए ओए
completely.
ओए अर्नब मस्त हो गया ना इनके उसमें का 200 साल हमने कुछ नहीं किया हम तो ऐसे घूम रहे
Yeah, yeah.
थे
No, no. We don't learn
200-300
that.
साल हम सर्कल
We didn't learn about how India got independence and all. They just skimmed by that and went on like Winston
the
Churchill.
American independence they talk about American
No,
independence
no,
वहाँ भी तो same था
So I
nothing.
was watching
so
recently a video of I remember England का captain था Nasir Hussain, right?
Yeah,
He
yeah.
was a batsman. So I think वो India tour पे होगा, so he was doing some documentary or some shoot, and he was saying कि कैसे Indian cricketing history is also impacted. कहता है because of European rule. मैंने कहा wait, it's not a European rule. You can be pretty straightforward and you can say it's
Hmm.
your country वहाँ पे. बड़े because of Europeans
no
Indian.
he's technically correct but still
I mean,
they left the most no
yeah,
he can say ना Dutch भी आए थे यहाँ पे Portuguese भी आए थे यहाँ पे he
yeah,
can
but
say all of those things everyone
technically
came
right, but
the
reality is
Dan
much different.
Anyway,
by the Danish had a base in South India somewhere I
let's
believe
get
मैंने
back to
पढ़ा
this news. What were your guys' reactions when you heard about it, though? I want to know that. Like, how
I
can such
turned it off honestly I
Sad.
turned it
it's
off
मैंने पूरा
sad?
देखा उस time. Like when I found out it's being because I got the news that VP has been escorted out or blah blah blah. Then I realized कि oh something serious has happened. तो मैंने news लगाई Twitter पे and it was live streaming. It was sad because now I actually imagine कर India में लोग parliament building capture कर लेते हैं.
yeah
That's the exact same.
Yeah.
when our parliament was attacked it was a literal terrorist attack and
It
this
was a
is also
terrorist
a terrorist
attack.
attack by the way this is
First,
also a
Yes,
terrorist
people,
This
attack by
is
the
this
way
should be
clearly.
written.
there are multiple factors I feel in this. Like firstly, the people who did that, I mean, they are breaking the law. Secondly, the police were like so passive to that. Like there were a lot of police officers just stood and they didn't do anything. Whereas, so that's why they have been questioned as in if this was a Black Lives Matters
1000%
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
why was there
100%.
tear gas and everything? So is that a racism angle? Why
yes
or
Kevin
or
Shaq said it best, and I never thought
Hmm.
I would ever say that Shaq said it best. This is the most obvious example of white privilege.
yeah,
So many people have been irritated by the Black Lives Matters protest since George Floyd का जो killing
yep,
हुआ है. So many people have said यार ये protest करते रहते हैं. ये पता नहीं हर बात पे सड़कों को जला रहे हैं इनको क्या लगता है ये करने से क्या होगा NBA players why are they kneeling down so many people have had this people got irritated this is whining this is why they do all of those things because at
yep.
every protest video that you have shown us of Black Lives Matter I can show you police and the way them throwing tear gas से लेकर charging on protesters who are just saying हमें equality दो on the other hand you had a rebel uprising literally jump and take over a parliament building and have no have okay, I'm sure people will be like me पांच लोग मरे हैं ऐसा सब हुआ है but the visuals were so starkly different until they started retaliating obviously but it was so
Also, इसमें
starkly different
100% racism का angle तो है ही. I mean, we cannot deny it कि it was a different treatment towards
Yeah,
these kind of folks. But at the same time, lots of
And
people.
some of these people, by this, sorry to interrupt, Arnav, some of these people also were armed. So this is where I have a lot of problem
But
now.
this is the exact
And
same
they
thing.
and
वहाँ पे मुझे
some
लगा कि यार I don't. I mean, I do agree कि it was a racism factor. At the same time, we have to also understand that because there were so many videos which came out when the first barricade it was broken, right? If you look at that video, police did retaliate. I think initially those videos were not released out, or maybe it was not published online. But if you look at the first attack which happened, it was way outside capital when I think there were only few folks who literally charged wahan pe, right? So I do agree police did try certain things, but at the same time, as compared to BLM movement, we cannot even compare it. Actually, there was such a drastic word difference in
absolutely
the type of retaliation. But it was even I do feel that police was also slightly handicapped because of the way because they know कि ये जो crowd था, it was armed. Some folks were armed, right? And whenever in a armed war coup kind of a thing, if you attack, like if you shoot or something, it can turn into a very very bad scenario, especially if people have guns wahan pe. And they were carrying guns, some of the folks, right? So it's a pretty fine line wahan pe
yep.
ki police bhi kaise retaliate करे, because in such a
tactfully
huge.
yes tactfully yet Arnab but तेरे entire statement में simple biggest problem है कि if you just judge it for what happened on that day this was a very blatantly planned event and if they
It
can track
was.
every other planned events why were they not prepared for this जब वो चिल्ला चिल्ला के बोल रहे हैं कि
Exactly.
इस दिन जब सेनेट वोट हो रहा है उस दिन हम आएंगे, हम रोकेंगे, एंड द गाय लिटरली ट्वीटेड एंड सेड स्टॉप देम फ्रॉम स्टीलिंग
And
स्टीलिंग आर वो, लाइक कम
and
ऑन,
sec
I think
वी
यहाँ
आर
पे
नॉट.
difference
and
was कि
lastly, like
they had the support of Trump, right? Trump actually went to the rally the same day behind the they had a rally going on and he actually instigated the crowd वहाँ पे. So there's this
Stop
difference
them
वहाँ पे
from
कि
stealing.
yeah, so Trump actually promoted it.
he said
Trump's
we are going to the Capitol and I'll walk with you, and
Trump's
he never
video
showed up.
to say
Obviously.
to tell them to stop is so dumb as well. He's basically saying don't stop but stop as well. He's just
Yeah,
saying that.
I am right.
Bas-
मैं नहीं,
It's
it's
just a
like
point
it's
out.
we
like
love
this.
you.
I am right.
He's like,
मैं सही हूँ पर ऐसा अभी के लिए रुक जाते हैं.
yeah.
मैं सही हूँ तब भी ओके. ये मत भूलना कि मैं
Oh
अभी भी
my
So
सही
as
हूँ.
Kevin
god.
said, he was supposed to go to Capitol that day. So
Mhm.
apparently news like the schedule was he was supposed to go to Capitol, but obviously Secret Service and they decided that he will be staying in White House. So they had some clue like something is going to happen over there, right? Trump had some because he
Yeah.
obviously did the crap just before going to White House.
It's,
So it was just sad.
And it's not
it's
just
just
Trump. I want to give a list of names that were also people should think about before they vote. Texas Senator Ted Cruz, equally responsible as Trump. Josh Hawley, who is Missouri Senator. Wyoming Senator Cynthia Lumens. Kansas Senator Roger Marshall. Florida Senator Rick Scott. Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville. Mississippi Senator Cindy Hyde Smith. These are the guys who were absolutely equally responsible with Trump. So make sure when you remember their names when you vote
No,
next
ऐसे तो
time.
बहुत लंबी list है because these are the only folks who objected in the Congress, right?
The entire party, bro.
Yeah, because there's a huge list of before the protest, there was a huge list of Republicans who were actually going to object, but because what happened, lots of Republicans backed out
yeah.
because of the
If you
image.
saw that Mike Pence, that video of Mike Pence asking, and then they
Yeah.
said they've all backed out, kind of thing, basically saying that it was just, oh my god.
They said you lovely people, please
Yeah,
return.
that's what
I'm
the
like,
video
what?
is. Yeah.
You calling
Donald
They
them
Trump.
lovely
can't
people?
ना केविन, वो अपने डेमो जी पावर के उसके भूख में तुम सब कुछ भूल जाते हो कि क्या हो रहा है.
Have
As long as you are not being hurt, you will be like, you know, कि मुझे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. That Margaret Atwood का वो है ना कि like जब when they were catching people of all denominations until the day they came for me, that's when I finally protested. वाली बात कि like तब तक chance नहीं बचेगा तुम्हारे पास. Like there's a thing along those lines. Mike Pence and people like that feel safe. He doesn't understand
Yep.
a fringe can turn on anyone. You think that they'll never turn on you, but they can turn on you quite fast. Like that's the
And even
boggles
policy of the
unfortunate
fringe.
reality is all these folks that backed out just because of their image.
Mhm.
Because they know they need to have their political career आगे भी. For example, Mike Pence, for example, और सारे जो Republican Party के हैं.
Yep.
Trump doesn't care about
I-
these things, but other people do. So they need a political career. So they have to.
I think Trump definitely cares. I think he's
Oh.
going to stand in the next
You know,
elections. if he
have you
There's
can.
heard? He's
he,
trying to
that he
pardon.
always can.
He's trying to pardon himself.
Yeah. Yeah, he's trying to pardon himself.
Because he knows
And not
what's
only
going
that,
to
I heard
happen
that
after.
I've heard that you can. I just found out that you cannot file a police case against a president until when he's on power. And there, I think the moment he steps down in 14
exactly. That's
days,
why
there's
he's
going
trying
to
to
be a
pardon
case on him.
himself. He's trying to protect himself. He's trying to look if he can do
Yeah.
that. He'll be the first president to do that if that happens.
He will be the first one to.
But he's looking into it.
Which is the action of a coward, which shows that he's a
But
This is
coward.
by the
what
way,
finally proved it to you.
even Trump realized he
I
did
mean,
something.
people who are blind enough.
Have you seen his last video?
People who are blind.
Bhai, his last tweet. I want to thank the 75 million Americans who voted for me. I don't know any more people. Okay, when what Kevin said right now like really bugs me. Like, oh, now bhai, abhi tak tumhe nahi pata na.
No. I'm talking from the
I
perspective.
completely understand from that
I'm talking
perspective.
like the fans who.
No, I don't think Kevin.
Yeah.
I think to them this was their great.
The
This was
supporters.
their moment of independence or something. Bro,
Oh, yeah,
they
it
had
was.
they had the Confederate flag and nooses
Oh my
outside.
god.
Can you believe what that implies? Any normal sane
They
human being.
replaced the US flag with Trump flag.
That-
I
Not even the
see. This is
Confederate
some
flag.
either. What is that weird game this everyone plays? Red Dead Redemption. Is this a scene from that that we are seeing? It's like, there was a street, like, watch the crumbling of a civilization or something along those lines. पता नहीं, maybe this is what it feels to be part of truly historic events and not realizing what's happening. Maybe we are having that moment. Like
I
हम
think
एक
it was. I
transition
mean,
देख रहे हैं.
this was a pretty big
This
event. Like
This is,
iska, I hope people pay the price for it. I really
and
hope.
now he's going to be the
But
first president,
I really hope
the first
Biden
president who's not
targets.
going to pass over the power, like be there in person to greet Biden at the White
yeah,
when the transfer of power happens. He says
I
he's not going to be
expected
there.
that. I hope
yeah,
I hope the same day
he
he's in
tweeted
handcuffs.
that that's the thing, he said it on Twitter. That just encapsulates
My God.
life of the last 10 years.
Akash, they might have to. I was about to say they might have to find some extra small handcuffs for his hands.
Oh,
That's
Yeah,
Jimmy Kimmel reference. He always
yeah.
talks about his small hands.
That was in
but
a
in the last
debate.
video which he posted,
Uh-huh.
he actually finally conceded, and it was much more
okay,
normal, I would
Arnab,
say.
that to me, while it was he conceded, it was the most pathetic conceding thing I've ever seen.
It was too
He
late.
still said, yeah, that's my point. You can't burn. अच्छा, तू मुझसे बोले कि यार तुम एक position of power में हो. Then the building I gave you, you burn it down. Then you come outside and say, मेरी गलती तो नहीं है, but I'm sorry this happened. Like
Yeah, I think now
that's
he's
not.
trying to safeguard his future things,
Yeah,
right?
he is.
As I mean,
Yep.
that's if he wants to run in future with Republican Party, he has to be on
If
good
Isn't
that
side with those
pardon thing
folks.
is
because
true, man, oh my God, we don't even know if it's true.
legendary.
I heard that you can still what do you call from the Chicago 7 series. I remember seeing that like enticing like a not enticing. What do you call causing a riot or anything, or is like up to 5 years in prison, right?
No idea.
In
No,
that
I don't know.
US
I
का क्या है
haven't
पता नहीं.
I haven't seen
ruling.
TV series in a long time, so I don't know.
Oh, it's a
Sasha
movie,
Baron
but
Cohen.
absolutely I would recommend
Amrit, he
people to
graduated from
watch it.
What?
Oxford.
It's an amazing movie.
Wait, he's in that movie?
Yeah, he graduated from Oxford, Amrit.
It's got a great cast. It's
I
got
won't
other
react to
people.
you.
I used to always say Oxford or Cambridge, one of those. I just know that he graduated from one of those.
It is
I don't
Cambridge, I
particularly
think.
mind. It's the way you add it always.
I always
to-
did. I used to say to Amrit, this guy did Borat and he's graduated from this university. Imagine.
like,
It's like you expect like
But-
some high, like, yeah, what I was going to say, snobby
Another-
Akash,
guy.
but Borat is like a
But
work of art.
It is.
bro.
It is. The way he
Extremely,
shows.
extremely offensive
Yep.
if you're a Kazakh, but apart from
Yeah.
them,
But
everyone
he
else
shows
is-
people in their natural light, the people how they are, some people in disgusting ways. But anyway, yeah, Arnav, you were saying something before you kept saying.
Oh, another interesting thing which happened, even though it was slightly late, that all these social platforms they finally blocked his
Facebook
account.
blocked
Finally,
everyone's blocking now.
too late, but still better
Very
than not doing it.
But they only block for 12 hours though.
Dude, that's a
I think,
big
didn't they
deal.
only
Blocking
block
your
for 12 hours?
President's account.
That's
It's not an easy It's
they-
not an easy
yeah.
decision to make, right? It's not. I mean, morally, yeah, they should have done it before,
Wasn't
but
Eric
This is a
Thousands of
this is a
years
very
ago.
dark day in
wasn't
their
Eric
history.
Trump also saying the same thing?
Abhi, his daughter said they're American patriots or something and deleted it. क्या मतलब? At this point, हम बोल क्या रहे हैं? Sometimes.
Tell her to go sell her perfume again. That's what her IQ is for.
Okay, Kevin, I wouldn't say.
Yeah, I wouldn't insult
judge her. I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't insult her or any of those things. She can be as much of as an entrepreneur as she is. The problem is they have enabled a deep hatred among people. That is what I have an issue with. वरना वो अगर capitalistic है, how can you blame them?
I think breaking rules and calling people patriot is a big.
Kevin,
I mean, someone who has broken the rules.
People believe in this. That's Kevin. आज का हमारा जो entire वो क्या था? We believe these extreme narratives. We get angry. That's why I don't want to ever get angry at them. I just want to look at what
See,
can
I
happen.
never had a. I don't have a problem with this, but like I do have a problem with like how like breaking the rules, and if they don't pay the price for it, I really hope they all of them, especially the ones that they can identify. It I mean, else it's not fair to the other people who
it's
are
never
going
been
through
fair.
like who are getting arrested for other
Kevin-
crimes. Now, if a school child, if a school kid who's studying in 11th goes and spray paints a wall, he is eligible for damaging property. But what
Bro,
about these guys then? I mean, it's not
Tamir
fair.
Rice was a 12-year-old kid in Cleveland playing in his own yard and he was shot to death because they thought he looked
Yeah.
older. A 12-year-old kid. And these people were able to get away with a lot of I don't even know what to say. So let's forget about it being unfair. The thing is that with each passing incident, we are crossing thresholds of like what we believe is normal in
But I
Jagaon
think
mein,
they
in
are
Logan
trying to
mein.
find it. So FBI has started the investigation. So they are trying. Hopefully, it will.
I
They
mean,
See,
will be
the
able
thing
it
is,
to.
should yield results pretty
this
fast.
has
They have
this
photos of
this has
people,
this
their
Yeah.
faces. So
अबे आधे लोग ये ट्विटर में बोल
yeah,
के गए कि
exactly.
मैं जा
I
रहा
mean,
हूँ
the
वहां
guy
पे
posted,
प्रोटेस्ट में.
yeah, a guy posted a picture of him sitting, lying down on the desk, like feet up on the desk, and
In,
like with the Confederate flag behind.
I mean, there was a picture of a guy with Nancy
Yeah,
Pelosi's
that's the guy I'm
desk.
talking about. Yeah,
Like this guy was
अरे वो उसका
sleeping
उसके
on
डेस्क
a.
से
Nancy
एक
Pelosi.
एनवलप बाहर ले गया उठा के एंड ही पोस्टेड अ
Oh,
पिक्चर उस एनवलप के साथ.
yeah.
कितने डम लोग हैं यार, ये क्या व्हाट आर दे एक्सपेक्टिंग, क्या होने वाला है.
हमारे केरला से भी बंदा झंडा लेके खड़ा था ना वहां पे.
No.
थैंकफुली उसने अपना
Uh,
फुल आइडेंटिटी
my
दे दिया.
dad,
तो
for the
नो नो
first time, my
ही सेड
dad was
पांच
like,
और थे.
it's embarrassing
कैन
to
यू
be a,
इमेजिन?
a Christian and
भाई
like there is no image
Kevin,
that
it's
people
not
can
just
say
one.
that anyone's
There were
better
10
than the
Indians
other.
there and
अरे
पांच
आई कैन
Indians थे.
बेट यू
Yeah,
देयर वर बंच ऑफ इंडियंस वहां पे.
a lot of
आई
Indian
एम
He
support.
प्रीटी
said,
श्योर.
I don't know, the guy declared it. Arnav, you don't have to guess. He said 10 Indian थे, 5 Kerala से थे. So, I don't understand anymore.
ये तो इसी का ग्रुप होगा, इसके अलावा और भी ग्रुप्स होंगे जो नॉर्थ के भी हो सकते हैं, कहीं के भी हो सकते हैं.
Definitely.
सो इट्स
शाबाश.
ओनली थिंग उनके पास फ्लैग नहीं था आई गेस, इसलिए वो शायद
हाँ.
पब्लिक में नहीं आए.
But when I saw a
ये हीरो
picture,
फ्लैग लेके
And
घूम
I
रहा है.
didn't know.
can you understand the irony? You know the irony of the entire discussion he made? The guy said that I wanted to prove that this is not a racist movement. And they have the
Confederate
Confederate
flag.
flag and four nooses there. Uncle, मतलब
फालतू इंडिया फ्लैग का नाम और खराब कर दिया वहां पे ले जाके.
कहता I would never take the tricolor if it was a racist movement. मैंने कहा वाह भाई. But that's the thing. More than anger, it's like we are watching, like I said, Kalia plays all these games. Now this is one of Kalia's games only. I think जो simulation है.
I hope they deport him for that. I hope he's the first one to get
नहीं,
deported
उसको
for
भाई
that.
चल बे. This is where if he says he did this, they'll be. But as you said, I think there will be repercussions because this was the first time they really got embarrassed in a very long time. And people were
Yes.
laughing at a lot of things.
Your
They got embarrassed.
your
They got properly embarrassed.
second
There were
most.
so many memes
This one.
कि वो रशियन वो बैठा हुआ है and he's just having fun, like he's smoking a cigar
हाँ.
वहां पे Putin and he's enjoying the show वहां पे.
लड़ो.
But
Yeah.
I had a question. How can Trump pardon himself when I mean, the case is not going to get filed until he gets out of power. So he can't
He's
pardon
looking into it.
himself
It's not. We
like in
don't.
future.
No one knows
in
the
advance.
answer.
I
I
don't know
don't.
how it works
Yeah.
कि वो pardon की definition क्या है, like can it, does it also
No.
pardon from all
Pardon
the.
A presidential.
pardon has to be something that is filed on you once you're in
Yeah,
office.
but he's trying to. Apparently, rumors
Yeah.
are at least he's
For
asked to
for
look.
a case that is I think उस इंडिया का एक वो रूल है सेम है कि तुम्हें ऐसे चीज के लिए नहीं वो कर सकते. It has to be filed. तुम जब moment it's filed उसके बाद the rule kicks in if I'm not wrong. So जैसे प्रेसिडेंट के ऊपर कोई सिविल केस होता है, तुम्हें 2 महीने का कोई नोटिस देना होता है, या कोई भी क्रिमिनल प्रोसीडिंग्स होती है तो पहले उन्हें ऑफिस से हटाते हैं और उसके बाद कंटिन्यू होते हैं. तो आई हैव अ फीलिंग दिस इट माइट बी समथिंग लाइक दैट फॉर दिस गाय आल्सो, आई थिंक. So I
Yeah,
think
because he has
if
bunch
they're
of cases,
smart,
right?
yeah, if they're smart, they won't do it now. They'll wait for the transfer to
I
happen.
won't be
Then
surprised.
इसके
I
बाद.
won't be surprised at all if this happens because yeah,
No,
if
because
you
I
don't.
know
transfer के
one
बाद.
thing. I know one thing. Biden really hates this guy.
Oh, Biden.
Biden really.
नहीं, but अमृत ट्रांसफर के बाद वो pardon खुद को नहीं कर पाएगा, right? Because he is
No,
not
no,
in power
he's not in
Exactly.
power. That's why he has to do it.
Exactly. I hope I am
Amrit Singh,
in my
yeah, they'll
assumption.
wait for the
They
case.
will file after 20th को officially it passes. ना अभी भी next
Oh,
कितनी
अच्छा,
22
case
yeah.
against
है?
Trump you're saying.
Yeah, case against
Yeah,
Trump
case
after.
again. The serious cases
Yeah.
for like incitement, like
Yeah.
national integrity के against काम करना and all of those whatever they are, they should do it afterwards if I'm not wrong. Tax
But-
वाला तो यार केस सालों से चल रहा है, कोई कुछ नहीं कर पाया.
But honestly, the amount, I think first time US president में 2008 का recession था, 1990s में, उससे पहले भी हमेशा कुछ ना कुछ war हुए हैं, recession हुआ है. This might be the biggest presidential term next 4 years because there's a pandemic going on.
Mhm.
It's the largest divide in the country right now. इतना बड़ा डिवाइड है यूएस में. अब पीपल टॉक अबाउट डिवाइड इन इंडिया, राइट? जो ट्रम्प यहाँ पे डिवाइड ब्लेटेंटली करके गया, इंडिया में भी है डिवाइड, नो वन इज डिनाइंग इट, बट जो ट्रम्प यहाँ ब्लेटेंटली करके गया है, लाइक that's crazy. Biden will have a huge task to bridge that gap. Even obviously no one can bridge the whole thing, but at least if he manages few percent, it will be a big achievement. And on top of
The good
pandemic.
part is he's a true diplomat.
Yeah, that's a good
He is
part.
He's a
he's
true
very
diplomatic
diplomatic.
person.
Yeah.
That is
I mean, all the world
that
leaders, they
helps a lot.
posted, they condemned the attacks जो हुआ है कैपिटल में, right? All the world, like क्या ब्रिटिश का नाम भूल गया मैं,
Boris Johnson.
Boris Johnson, इंडिया का हर जगह का, right? I mean, everyone condemned the attacks. I mean,
because that's
India
the thing
ka.
there.
Actually, Boris Johnson, the comments that he got was very funny though. Poor guy, his intentions was good, but like people are commenting saying, "Please take care of UK first."
By that,
Hey,
if you go on
I'd say
Twitter,
that
जब
Boris
कोई भी कुछ
Johnson,
बोलता है,
I'm very surprised with how he's acting with UK's problem. He could have been, I thought he'd be more like Trump and just
Yeah.
ignore the whole thing. But surprisingly, he's been like, he can't. Yeah.
They can't. They can't. They
you
are,
people are dying, bro.
Yeah. No, but
If you
Trump
have any
ignored.
sort of
no.
heart,
Trump ignored it.
That's
as well.
not the
No,
problem.
but-
Trump ignored
Trump-
blatantly.
Yeah, Trump ignored
No, Trump-
blatantly.
I don't expect him. Boris Johnson, I understand, term conservative, very funny guy, and all of these things. But if you have a little bit of conscience, also,
You saw that video
see,
of him
before he
tackling
became
the
PM,
kid.
he was my favorite British politician. Before, obviously, मैं policy wise पे नहीं बोल रहा. I have no idea at all. UK के politics में क्या. I just know कि him and Jeremy Corbyn के बीच में था. That's all I know. But if you look at pre 2016-15 Boris Johnson videos now, I found him to be the funniest
He
British
is.
politician because he was very witty. He was like very witty and he had this weird habit. और उसके बाल ऐसे होते थे.
Oh my God. He actually
But have
looks
you
like
seen
Trump.
his video?
He actually.
अभी रिसेंटली जब वो इंडिया में फार्म लॉस का उससे प्रोटेस्ट चल रहे थे, राइट? सो वन ऑफ द पर्सन, आई थिंक उन्हीं के पार्लियामेंट में किसी ने और कहीं मीडिया सेशन में, आई डोंट रिमेंबर वेयर, समवन आस्क्ड द क्वेश्चन कि व्हाट डज ही थिंक अबाउट इंडिया में जो चल रहा है फार्म लॉस के बारे में, जो ये सब चल रहा है. एंड आई डोंट थिंक ईदर से क्वेश्चन सुना नहीं, और ही हैड नो आइडिया. ही स्टार्ट टॉकिंग अबाउट इंडिया पाकिस्तान वहां पे. And it was such a big
When he gave a message to Indians and for Diwali to celebrate it indoors, do not do anything outdoors, do not get black. He's like, I hope you can have all your gulab jamun. And he was like, I'm like, kya bol raha hai? I sent it to Kevin. I sent it to Kevin. I was like, kya bol raha hai?
Pronunciation के लिए
You can have your tasty gulab jamun. I'm like, eh? You could have just kept it a simple message. Please celebrate this festival indoors. But anyway.
But yeah.
But
hopefully he
last
will
thing,
recover
I
from
cannot.
this tragedy.
Yeah, it's a very dark day in US history for sure
Mhm.
that this happened. But I cannot believe probably your second most important building, and people can storm in and wreck it, do whatever they can with little backlash, not like little.
ये मिशिगन
protection.
में गवर्नर्स ऑफिस के अंदर नहीं घुसे थे ये लोग गन्स लेके. ऐसा कुछ हुआ था ना some before the
मुझे
election.
आइडिया नहीं है. No, I'm not
They
aware of
carried
it.
AKs into the governor's building or something. But again, they were not terrorists. They were peaceful
Yeah.
gun
No, they're
building.
protesting. Yeah, it's their right. They're not terrorists.
People should call these folks terrorists. I mean, there's no better
100%
word for it. They are
No,
terrorists.
they are terrorists.
They are.
Yeah.
What else is a terrorist? If a terrorist says something that
They're
if a
damaging.
terrorist shouts in a language in Arabic that you don't understand, only then they are terrorists.
Unfortunately, people की definition वो हो गई है. Unfortunately.
They are
Yeah.
shooting, jumping, trying to
They're ransacking the
if
old
they
building.
had started shooting. What else is that?
And it's against the nation, right? Period. Whenever it's against the nation, it is terrorism. मेरे हिसाब से चाहे वो डोमेस्टिक हो चाहे कोई भी हो, doesn't matter. It is because it was against the whole sovereign system of United States, right?
Anyway, we were going to discuss also the Jack Ma disappearance, but we'll save that for another time now because that's also a very fishy thing. Although someone said they found a video of him repairing ACs in China somewhere. But
Okay, Akash, what's wrong with you?
I was looking into it. I'm like, hey, someone wrote, I saw him just
Something
be
wrong
repaired
with
by
you.
AC in China.
But
See,
But-
while all of us do research on a topic, Akash goes and searches for these memes.
These memes. But
No, but
These memes.
it has apparently I read somewhere that ये पहले भी हुआ है, nothing is new.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of billionaires वो पहले भी गायब हुए हैं चाइना से, so there is not a shock. Only thing is this was a international figure.
Mhm.
That was the only difference.
I mean, questioning. He end up making a mistake of questioning the financial laws of China. So
It's fishy. I sent you guys.
he called it. He called the
It's fishy. I
lawmakers
sent you guys the
outdated.
actress who spoke for Hong Kong, like for
Yeah.
Hong Kong, and then the actress went missing. So
There's so many instances. एक बार किसी billionaire
Fair
ने
enough.
overnight he sold all his shares of the company overnight and he just गायब. He
Very
not sold.
weird.
I think he gave it to the government or something. So there are so many cases which has happened in China which are fishy, but it's
Yeah. So
interesting. Imagine Mukesh Ambani going missing suddenly.
it's,
This is exactly same thing for China.
we'll talk more about that as more news comes, but that's all we know about it,
Bro.
honestly.
Bro, जियो इंटरनेट का क्या होगा?
Amrit will go
अमृत
back
को
to
नींद नहीं
BSNL.
मिलेगा, साला उसके पास इंटरनेट नहीं होगा.
क्या?
That's why he's happy living in
Yeah,
India.
let's end it on that note. Thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Vele podcast. We are available, as you all know, on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and also on YouTube. Give us a follow on Instagram at Vele Pod as well. We will be updating that shortly, hopefully. Until then, see you on the next show. Bye.
Good night.
Might be morning for them.